All right, New England, here we are. Um, it is 4:39, April 12th. It's about 60 degrees in the Geneva area, and it's not stopping this sort of drizzly, cool, warm weather. And it looks like it's going to continue for us for quite some time. Hopefully, your situation will be different. I've looked around the state of New York, and things look fairly different depending on where you are in the region. I suspect right now, in terms of general on the East Coast, people fall between somewhere between, depending on how high and north you are, green tip still, and moving into tight cluster or almost pink. And at this point, I'm still kind of pushing. I think if you're moving away from the green tip and moving away from half-inch green towards the tight cluster, I would avoid the copper. I'd stop with that about there. Now in Maine and in New Hampshire and some of the more cooler areas, you probably could still get away with it, particularly on varieties that don't take a lot of copper injury. I'm going to be looking in to see how far I can spray copper and not get injury in Geneva next year. And that's better for granting agencies to fund than growers to try at home. So we're going to do that. And we're going to mess up my orchards and see how long I can take copper um, in terms of these sort of questions. Can we go all the way in the tight cluster safely? But at this point, if you're going to see a lot of rain for the week, I'm going to recommend the AP fungicides, particularly if you have cooler temperatures or if you have warmer temperatures and long drizzly rain. Probably going to recommend the Dodine. We really like these two now because they will take out only apple scab. They're not as effective against cedar apple rust, the apple blotches, the powdery mildews, the fly speck sooty blotch, and you're going to want to save all of those other materials because while they're excellent against scab, they get all the other apple diseases. So 7-Elevens, 3s, and 52s are just absolutely wonderful against the other diseases, and those will start to come into play around bloom to petal fall, and we want to kind of save them all the way until cover, getting into the pre-harvest area. All right, and now if you're in the organic, probably could squeeze in one more copper depending on what you are, particularly if you have something like cider apples or something that you don't really need a lot of fruit finish concerns. You can probably get another copper out of it before moving into your biopesticides. And you can put sulfur in there as well, and we'll talk about that briefly. So where are we? Hopefully in tight cluster to bloom. If you have the big ascospore ejection and you're conventional, and like 5 days of drizzly rain. And if it's cool, you would recommend the AP fungicide. We have two of them, Scalar Vanguard. If you use Inspire Super, it has one of these components in it, but you lose one of your Group 3s for the season, one of your Group 3 allowed applications. So that's why I kind of like to go with the single products there, or go with Dodine. It really doesn't have many uses after bloom, but it's fantastic against apple scab. It doesn't do that much for the other diseases that later. Now, if you're really light rain and you are conventional, I'd say you could probably just maintain your Captan Mancozeb and let that little drizzle push your Captan around the orchard, the Mancozeb stick. Or if you could use a biopesticide, we'll see what the ejections look like. Some of these places are very light and the risk is very low. I really like the liquid biopesticides. If you're full organic and you have a big ejection event or a lot of days in rain, we're going to see, because it's so unpredictable throughout the region. I've come to notice, even within New York and the New England and the Wisconsin area, who knows what we're going to run into. Big ejection events, I'd go with the sulfur. Little ejection events, I'd stick to my biopesticides, pick some of the liquid formulations. I think you'll find that they're very nice, they're easy to use, and even if they cost a little bit more, they're worth it. Let's take a look at the forecast and see what we're going to see for the week in New England. Let's start with Massachusetts and see how we're doing in Belchertown. We'll take a couple of them today. Look at South. How are we looking there? Uh, Goodness gracious, for some reason it thinks we're looking on April 24th. Well, that can't possibly be right. Let's see if we can reset this thing. It's acting really nutty. I don't know why it's doing that. Nope. The calendar's broken, but this website is working fine. Um, and if these weird things happen to you where the little date of interest calendar shows the 24th, but it's working normal, don't forget to report this to the NUA help desk. There's probably a link somewhere. There it is, the contact NUA. And if they haven't updated the thing to contact the help desk on their own homepage, then it's their fault if they get spammed with a lot of emails. So yeah, let's take a look at the actual ejection. We're moving into about 26% by the end of the week. And we do have a long drizzly period of leaf wetness. But the problem is it's not long enough leaf wetness periods are going to be broken up. They're going to be intermittent. That's why you see these periods like 5, 6, 7, and 8, and you get a break. We're coming off of a longer durations of leaf wetness. Great opportunity to come in on the 13th tomorrow and get something else on. Do I think you need to go full ham? Probably not. If you want to save Captan and Mancozeb residues, then I would use my AP fungicide. I don't know if I'd use up my Dodine yet because we're not getting a lot of infection periods. I'd probably just maintain coverage with my fungicide of choice. That is, if the rain amount has actually depleted the others. We're getting a lot of drizzly weather. The the ascospores, well, Canidia could as well if they were there, but they're not. The ascospores of Venturia could germinate in this weather, but they're really not ejection. Your biggest bump is coming up around the somewhere between the junction of the 13th and 14th, but we're really not getting the conditions needed for infection. We're not getting the duration of leaf wetness hours. What about the rest of Belcherton? Let's go see. The regular one. Same sort of situation. You've got more dry weather to get in there and recover for this very light event. I mean, this would be, you'd be doing all right with organic and using the biologicals to come in on the 13 and control this. Would I, if I had an organic, I was only using biologicals and not sulfur, I'd probably come in tomorrow and protect against the drizzly rain that we have throughout the week. But I don't say it would, I wouldn't say it's call for alarm. Let's take a look at some of the other places in Massachusetts. Same sort of thing. Really, depending on where you are in Massachusetts, you're got dealing with like 2 and 3% maturity, little blips of ejection, no infection events predicted. You could just sit on your current coverage and sort of wait these little drizzly periods out. Or if you do need to recover because you did have an inch and a half of rain since your last application, well, you could just pick any one of the days at the start of the week and just move on happily into the next week. So far, so good. I'm going to try this one. See how we're looking there. Now, depending on where you are in the state, you could have different problems. And this is the situation that we're running into with Geneva. In this particular case, Sandusfield, right there, you're looking at about 21% maturity in the week. Not a lot of ejection, so it's not a big one. But what you have going throughout the week is cool temperatures that we're sitting on right now and just blips and blips, long misty rainfall, 5, 24, 16 hours of leaf wetness. 2 coming in tomorrow. Is probably somewhere between tonight and tomorrow is your best time to get in there. I sprayed today when I had to deal with this sort of situation. And you want to probably squeeze something in before the 14th and 15th where we get that combined infection period. It's not a lot of ejection. I don't think I would panic. But if you were worried about this drizzling rain, I might use an AP fungicide here, or I might come in with my Dodine. It will get a little bit of back cleaning up of anything that could have been there. We're not getting a real infection period, so you're not like exposing large levels of population to a selective pressure for resistance. But you come in, maybe get a little kickback on your Dodine or your AP, and then move forward into this week of sort of long, drizzly leaf wetness and appropriate temperatures for apple scab. As that average temperature gets to the late 50s and 60s, it is very nice for apple scab. And if you were in that area, I might try one of my bigger products. And let's turn Eastbridge. Right. Let's check this one out here. Moving in about 18%. Not a lot of ejection. Long drizzly period. No infection events. Find an opportunity and make a get some protection. Let's take a look at Richmond. See how they're doing. Same sort of thing. They're in an infection period right now, coming off of one and getting ready to move into another. Approaching 20% maturity. Not a lot of ejection. I say a light, maintain your own coverage somewhere. If you need to recover after the big events of the 10th, 11th, and 13th, do it tomorrow or so, and then come back and, you can protect a little bit against this. It doesn't require sort of, I wouldn't say would freak out, just, Captan, Mancozeb, sulfur if you're organic, maybe not even that. Just the biopesticide, you could probably weather the storm coming up on the 14th and 15th, unless things really change dramatically. Let's try 1, 2 more. Okay. Well, in Stowe, things look great. Really moving into the 33% ascospore ejection. You can really see that even in a small state like Massachusetts, you have a lot of really different things going on. In this particular case, you can just ride this into next week. Pick your best day when you think you might want to spray next. I might even wait until late at the end of the week, given the amount of rainfall, unless you think your weather station's broken. And with that, let's try Deerfield. How's that looking? Oh, it's thinking. It's giving me the hashtag, and come on, big money. As new or broke. Let's hope not. I don't like. Oh, there it is. Finally came. What are we looking at? 32%. Oh, coming off of an infection period, moving into a long drizzly week with 60-degree weather that apple scab loves. As you move closer to 60, you're not going to need as many hours of leaf wetness. I would come in tomorrow and recover. In this particular instance, I was in this particular spot. I think I might use my Dodine tomorrow and grab any kickback that you might have scraped through on the 11th and 12th and go into the week and protect hard against all of this long, long whole week of very short periods of leaf wetness. We're talking 6, 9, 7 hours of leaf wetness, but they're all stacked together, and we do have an infection period on the 15th. So maybe take care of that one. I'm going to go to Connecticut and see what we got there. See how they're doing. A couple locations. See an easy time in Connecticut. 24% maturity. Moving into ample opportunities to plan your next application. Do I think you need to apply before the 14th? Probably not. You just have a blip of leaf wetness hours there. Nothing to really worry about, but you can. All right. Let's check this one. Same sort of situation in Connecticut. Moving into 30%. Pretty easy week. You can plan your next application whenever you like. I mean, you could put it on tomorrow. That's fine if you feel like it's been a long time since your last one. You can put one on there and sort of protect out. And if you're an organic, you're in good shape to probably use biological and do pretty well for yourself. Well, I want to check out New Hampshire. Let's see how we're doing there. Oh, check out Apple Hill. Gross. They're running into what I call the Geneva issue. This is the same sort of thing we're running in the Finger Lakes. Low levels of maturity, low levels of ejection, maybe 3%, but the problem is you have long wetting periods, and even a little bit of apple scab spores can go a long way as you move into the season. You're looking at leaf wetness from the 11th all the way through the 17th, with 2 infection periods predicted because of either the amount of rain or the nice temperatures with lower levels of leaf wetness. You just have 3, 4, 8, 1, 9, 9, 8. A lot of leaf wetness, drizzly the entire week. I would put something on. Definitely maybe one of the fancier materials. I might use it up now just because you're not going to get a lot of break to put something on there. If you get a break in the rain, plan your spray, and I may use a Dodine or an AP in this particular case. Would you be fine with Captain Mancozeb? Probably just be just fine as well, because they're not massive infection periods, they're light infection periods, but I don't like how long it lasts. And while it says the magnitude isn't scary, that's a lot of little bits of rain all week. It's going to be cloudy and overcast. Great weather for apple scab in general. Let's see how the other stations are looking in New Hampshire. What do we got? Coming off of a big one in Hollis, 23% maturity. Not a lot of ejection later in the week. I think if you wanted to, I don't know if you're coming in, you might be able to get something on tomorrow. If you wanted something with a little Protect 4 reach back, maybe use one of your APs. Or you could probably just recover in your things. If you had a reasonable application on before this big period, Captain Mancozeb would probably last and survive. You could put an AP on later in the week if you wanted to protect against the next week, or you could wait and see how it sort of stacks up in that area. That's a sort of a tricky situation. Depends on when you applied your last application. You're not washing off a lot of it, but it is a lot of leaf wetness hours. So the residue isn't being depleted for something like Captain Mancozeb, but it is being challenged by probably lots of ejection over that week. And it might be worn off as we get later into the week. I have to really depend on what we got there and see what's happening in Plainfield. Oh, gross. Another all week long bout of rain as well. You've got a combined one right now. You're in the middle of it. You're going to get a blip, and then you're going to be a break, slight break. You're going to get 1 leaf wetness hour on the 14th. If I was in this particular area, I think I would come in with my AP fungicide or my Dodine on that period. And even though we're not getting a lot of ejection and maturity, if something were there, you've got this just extended period of time of high humidity and leaf wetness where apple scab could be a sort of a troublemaker. Have you worn off your residue at about 0.15, 0.18, 0.18? Yet some stuff could be wearing off right now as you're in the rain. Maybe come in if you can get in on the 14th and recover, or use your AP or your Dodine to try to grab a little bit of back activity and a little bit of forward activity. Not a lot of inoculum in the orchard, less risk of fungicide resistance, but these long periods make me a little bit concerned. Check out Farmington. Same situation. You're not getting a break in Farmington. It's moving on, same as the playing field, except it's just constant. If you can get a break in the rain long enough to get something on, you could apply in the middle of this massive combined infection period from the 12th. If there is a break, as you see combined, yes, and then as a break, that means there's going to be a 24-hour break in the action predicted, and that's probably where you would go in and put your AP fungicide or your Dodine and protect against this long, nasty, drizzly weather. Let's check Hampton Falls, see how they're doing. Same situation. At some point, you're going to get a break, probably before the 14th. And a lot of this is going to depend. With this rain being so erratic, you probably need to watch the weather forecasts and see when your break will come, as depending on when you might want to recover. I don't think I would let the trees go uncovered in all of this long wetting out. A little bit of leaf wetness every day with some 8 or 9 hours of it might be enough for apple scab to really take advantage of your crop. All right, let's see how we're doing in Maine. All right, no apples, no maturity. It's still glitching out a little bit. Let's just make it green tip. Make it green tip a little earlier. If you had green tip, it would say you need to worry about some stuff. I think you can probably maintain your copper. If you feel like your copper might have been washed off because you're in this big wetting event on the 13th, put a new one on. If you're really moving into away from green tip into deep half-inch green, then you might be worried, but not a lot of maturity, not a lot of ejection. Maine seems to be in good shape. Check out Augusta Airport. Not looking, still says you're away from green tip. No need to panic. Yeah, you got a lot of rain coming up into the week. A lot of long leaf wetness hours like everybody else. If you get a break, you could make one of your second copper applications, maybe an early green to half-inch, depending on what kind of how your trees are moving along. Not too scary. I want to look up Milton, New Hampshire, or Maine. Let's see what they look like. If you're down there, it still says you're good to go. No green tip yet, but it's a lot of rain. Good opportunity if you can get in there to cover up with your silver tip copper or early green copper if you haven't. And no infection periods, but something could trickle through. Even if you hit green tip today, you'd be at 4%, no ejections. But just having something on there to knock out that inoculum wouldn't be bad. And what else do we have? Let's do Lewiston, see how they're doing. Airport station as well. Picking a green tip date, same situation. All rain all week. Maybe get that copper on. And let's check one last one. Still says not a green tip, but if you're a green tip, you're going to be faced with a long week of drizzly 10 and 20 hours of leaf wetness. Constant leaf wetness, not too warm enough to get an infection period, but any little bit of waffling around these temperatures could lead to trouble. That's why I would make sure I'd still had my early season coppers on. I want to go into Wisconsin and see what we're doing there. Right, let's see if I'm curious to see if Bayfield's back yet. And I think it's dead in the door now. All right, let's check a different one. All right, oh, come back. There we go. Check this one out. Growth. All right, Wisconsin's in another not great situation. 18% maturity. You've got ejections 1, 2, 1, and then a big 9 at the end of the week. You should be coming off of a pretty hefty infection period with lots of an inch of rain. This will wash everything off by the 15th, making sure that you need to come in and get ready for that bigger 9% ejection later in the week. It's warm enough in this particular area to warrant, you could just recover the Cap-10 mancozeb's fine. You could use your Dodine now to kind of clean up from a lot of this extra leaf wetness, any infections that might have occurred on the 14th and 13th. When you get that break in the rain, I might recommend the Dodine if you have it. If not, just do your Captain Mancozeb and hold tight and see how you do the rest of the week. All right. Oh, goodness. It's not gotten any better in Wisconsin. You are in Scabpocalypse up in this particular area. You're moving into almost 60% maturity. This is wild. 22% ejection, 12% later on in the week. If you get a break in this really intense infection period, you see it doesn't take much to get an infection period when you have then the 60s degree temperature, 59 as well. This right in there, you're just getting a massive combined infection period all the way through the 15th. If you can catch a break in there, I would definitely recommend the Dodine or an AP fungicide. Put in one of those single sites and try to clean up while it's happening. It's hard to tell when you're going to get a break. Probably sometime on the 13th, the 14th, you might get your first break long enough to spray in the rain. But hopefully you'll get enough drying time to get that on there. Man, it's just really going out there. That is not a good situation. If you have to wait to the 16th, definitely use your Dodine. Grab some of this, clean that up, and then protect against everything that's going forward. You do have a lot of inoculum. This is one of the big ones. I would say it doesn't get much bigger than this. You're approaching 78% maturity. That's a scary looking situation we have there in Wisconsin. What else do we have in ours? How's that look? Well, by contrast, they haven't reached screen tip yet. I assuming and hope that you're up near the top of the state. Rain all week. Ugh, gross. Not a lot of maturity, not a lot of ejection. If you have silver tissue out there, some green tissue, and you get a break in the rain long enough, you could put on one of your copper sprays and knock down inoculum and protect against the future. All right, Rochester. Check out Rochester, Wisconsin, and it is, oof, gross. It's going to rain all week. You have temperatures in the 60s, 70s for the average. You had a big ejection period coming up on the 14th. It's going to blast into outer space. If there's any way you can get in ahead of this and cover your crop, I think I would. Captain Mancozeb will be fine to weather this storm of awful weather, and you could use, you could use your AP. You could put on Dodine if you can get in there and find a not long period of, once this maybe 0.25 to 12 ends, you're going to get a break. It looks like you get a combined yes, and that means there's going to be a 24-hour break in the action, and I would grab in there, and I would probably make my Dodine application or an AP Scale of Vanguard, or you could recover with your Captain Mancozeb. All are good options. The Dodine's a single site. Potential has a little bit of reach back in that area. What else do we have? Let's see. That's going to be a hard one to beat. It doesn't look good for Scab this year in Wisconsin. For in this little area down there, you got another big one coming up. A lot of ejection and maturity. 8 and 18%, then a break, and then boom. Towards the end of the week, on the 17th is the next big one. This means you should get right in there 13th, 14th, and recover. You can use one of your Dodine applications. You can use Captain Mancozeb. And if you're an organic, I'd spray a lot. I would probably find what breaks I could and put my biopesticide applications on. And then finally, let's take a look at Verona. I would say Wisconsin wins for having the most intense scab season thus far. Moving into Verona looks terrible with 20%, 27% with 11% ejection, a massive ejection event coming up there. When you add these numbers up, you're going to hit over my plus 15% threshold, hitting into about 21 going in before the 17th. Do you get a break in the action? Only between the 15th and between the 16th and 17th does it suggest you'll get a break. This is one long contiguous infection period, but this means there's less than 24 hours of interrupted leaf wetness there, and that's why you don't get much of a break. If you can find a break in the drizzle, put on your AP, put on your Dodine, or you can recover with Captain Mancozeb and just hope that you can get through this and survive till the next week. This is a pretty nasty event, and it looks like you're moved along fairly far in the season in this region, hitting 47% by the end of the week maturity. And with that, good luck, and hopefully you'll be able to take this stuff out